Hey guys, just thought I'd go through some more supplementary teachings that I found in A Course in Miracles that relate to this harmlessness. So I thought I'd just make little recordings and share them here every now and then for anyone who feels to have a listen. So today I wanted to go through a section called The Ritual of the Death of God. It's on page 535 in the purple book, chapter 16, section 5. So chapter 16 is called Looking at the Special Relationship, and section 5, The Ritual of the Death of God. Yeah, so I'm just going to go through it, and wherever it says special relationship, I'm going to say special relationship with with animals or with farm animals. So you can read any of these sections and say special relationship with my partner, or just add the extra thing. It helps anchor the teaching into something concrete. Okay, so let me begin. In looking at the special relationship with animals, it is necessary first to realize that it involves a great amount of pain. Anxiety, despair, guilt, and attack all enter into it, broken into by periods in which they seem to be gone. And the seem is in italics, so things seem to be gone, but they're still happening. As we know, the one mind, this huge attack on billions, trillions in fact, per year of animals. All these must be understood for what they are. Whatever form they take, they are always an attack on the self to make others guilty. So yeah, we are attacking ourselves, obviously, because we're one with these beautiful little furry friends, and interestingly he says we're doing it to make the other guilty. Now, I think that's quite cryptic, but it sort of attempts to explain it as we go along. We have spoken of this before, but there are still some aspects of what is really being attempted that we have not touched on. Very simply, the attempt to make guilty is always directed against God. So yeah, this attack on our brothers, it's actually an attack on God. The ego doesn't want us to be in the love of God, so it wants us to be doing all these things that directly, oppose or attempt to make God dead or unreal, love impossible. This whole belief about we need to kill to live, we need to defend against ourselves. I guess in the caveman days it was defending against the wild animals, became the hunt, maybe if you lived in a place where there was a lot of lack, a desert or something like that, or a forest where the plants weren't growing very well, edible plants. It's all coming out of the mind of the ego, creating this form that says you have to kill. Nowadays, it changes all the time. It used to be iron, like if you don't eat these brothers, you're going to die of iron deficiency. And then sort of now it's protein, It wasn't so long ago there was a group of people trying to prove that protein was bad for you. So it's constantly, the ego is looking for a way to attack God. So I'll get back to that thing. For the ego would have you see him and him alone as guilty, so God as guilty, leaving the sonship open to attack and unprotected against it. So God's guilty, God's left us here, God's abandoned us. Now we're open to attack. The special love relationship with farm animals is the ego's chief weapon for keeping you from heaven. It does not appear to be a weapon, but if you consider how you value it and why, you will realize what it must be. Yeah, so often we don't sort of feel like we consciously value this this ritual we do by paying a hitman and putting a dead body on our plate. You know, when you look at it directly, you go, wow, how can we even value that? But, you know, think about how we all sit down to tables and celebrate, like, oh, it's Christmas, let's celebrate the birth of love into the world, and eat a pig or a turkey, and, you know, these things, you know, we value it for the joining, the family, we value it for the taste, we value it for the pride, but there's all sorts of reasons why we value it, and I guess, you know, like we just have to look at those little things will come up, and you just look at them as they go along, and just know that it's just we're attempting to attack God and make God guilty. 3. The special love relationship with farm animals is the ego's most boasted gift, and the one that has the most appeal to those unwilling to relinquish guilt. So interesting, you know, like the ego mind is unwilling to relinquish guilt. And so it's a boasted gift. The dynamics, in inverted commas, of the ego are clearest here. For counting on the attraction of this offering, the fantasies which centre around this are often quite open. Here they are usually judged to be quite acceptable and even natural. Yeah, so like, you know, look at how we just find all of this murderous horror acceptable and natural. And he describes it as a fantasy. You know, we're living in this fantasy of little animals happily frolicking in paddocks, and, you know, that they don't care that they're going to die. They don't have a you know, they don't mind. They're too dumb to know if they're separated from their families and all that kind of thing, and it's all acceptable and natural. And yeah, I remember sort of just thinking like that, and it is like a literal sleeping, a literal fantasy. No one can. Okay, so back to the text. No one considers it bizarre to love and hate together. Now, before knowing this, you would say, of course we think it's bizarre to love and hate together, but look, it is. Look how bizarre it is to love and hate together. And even those who believe that hate is sin merely feel guilty, but do not correct it. So, you know, like most people, if you say, are you against animal cruelty? Are you against unnecessary harm to animals? They'll say, yes, of course, but you say the word vegan and everyone's triggered and feels guilty and is enraged, and, you know, they don't want to correct it. This ego doesn't want it corrected. This is the natural, in inverted commas, condition of the separation, and those who learn that it is not natural at all seem to be the unnatural ones. So yeah, the vegans, you know, we get called extreme. And, you know, I don't want to call ourselves vegans. Maybe, you know, sometimes I like to prefer to call it I'm practicing veganism. It's just a word. We could say harmlessness. I think in India they call it ahimsa, which is just non-violence. So we're the unnatural ones. It's not, you know, people talk about this circle of life and natural, but like if you watch any footage of animals killing other animals, the ones that are the victims are not into the circle of life, you know. They're not saying, oh, I'm part of the circle of life, here comes the big lion to kill my baby. I'm just going to let that all happen. They run away, they fight. The circle of life is not natural at all. But yet here we are in the ego world, acting it out and, being separate and considering it a natural condition. Back to the thing. For this world is the opposite of heaven, having been made to be its opposite, and everything here takes a direction exactly opposite of what is true. I mean, look, he's not pulling any punches here now. He's saying we're in opposite land. The things that we describe as natural are not natural. You know, this is not natural. In heaven, where the meaning of love is known, love is the same as union. So we unify, we're one. That's what love is. That's me saying that. Here, where the illusion of love is accepted in its place, love is perceived as separation and exclusion. So, we here where the illusion of love is accepted in its place, love is perceived as separation and exclusion. So not real love, we're performing an illusion of love. The illusion of love. Oh, I love my cows, farmers, you know. I love my dog, but I eat a pig. This is an illusion, and this love is perceived as separation and exclusion. Some we love, some we don't love others. It is in the special relationship with farm animals, born of the hidden wish for special love from God, that the ego's hatred triumphs. For the special relationship with animals is the renunciation of the love of God, and the attempt to secure for the self the specialness he has denied. So God doesn't make us special. He doesn't say, you're important, you can die, you can live, you can eat him, etc. You're, especially noticed, you've got a special, you can have what you like at the expense of everybody else. And so we're saying, okay, well, the ego's like, well, God's not going to give it to you, so let's take it. Let's renounce God's love and take it. Take what we need at the expense of anything. Back to the text, and it's essential to the preservation of the ego that you believe that this specialness is not hell but heaven. So what we've chosen to be special, to attack each other, to say call it love, special hate, is not hell but heaven. So we call it heaven. Oh, because think of all the ads on, all these happy meal. Have a happy meal at McDonald's. Like this heavenly idea of this beautiful, delicious meal, and what it took to make that meal is just as unhappy as you can ever imagine. I mean, we treat animals worse than our worst criminals. For the ego would never have you see that the separation can only be loss, being the one condition in which heaven cannot be. To everyone, heaven is completion. There can be no disagreement on this, because both the ego and the Holy Spirit accept it. They are, however, in complete disagreement on what completion is and how it is accomplished. The Holy Spirit knows that self-completion lies first in union. So seeing others as we are, there are no others, we're unified. and then in the extension of this union. So allowing this union to be extended into the perceptive world, to be extended, the love, is extended and including. Like how much more abundance can you have living there? Like the Holy Spirit says, here's this union, it's beautiful, this love of God that sustains us, and then we just extend and everything becomes so much more beautiful and loving. And so, but the ego has a different idea about this. So I'll read on. To the ego, completion lies in triumph and the extension of the victory, even to the final triumph over God. In this, it sees the ultimate freedom of the self. So it doesn't want to know about others as one. It wants to have victory and triumph over others and climb up this ladder to be special. This is all happening in the unconscious mind, like we don't see it clearly, but when you look at the big picture, up above the battleground, you can see it. In this it sees the ultimate freedom of the self, for nothing would remain to interfere with it. And this is its idea of heaven. For this it follows that union, which is a condition in which the ego cannot interfere, must be hell. So union, the love, the joining, the seeing each other's needs as your own, your brother's needs as your own, is a condition in which the ego cannot interfere because it wants division, wants separation. And so that it sees that as hell. Oh, melting, my needs are not important, I think of that witch. I'm melting, in the Wizard of Oz, yeah, sort of like, it's funny, ego, like, surrendering to the one, the union, and how horrified it is. Okay, back to the text. The special relationship with animals is a strange and unnatural ego device for joining hell and heaven and making them indistinguishable. Watch any cooking show, watch the judges eating the delicious food, some poor dead tortured creature. And they're like carrying on as though they're in heaven. Oh, this is the most amazing meal, and this is the highest of humanity, and culinary device. It's even even now I sort of and I don't say any of this without putting myself in it. I've lived decades in that mind, and we all have. We all have, and thank God, I say thank God, Jesus has woken me up to it. And the attempt to find the imagined of best of both worlds. So I can have pleasure, I can have this little version of heaven of mine, but I also get to have my separation and attack and killing. What I'll do is I'll just hide it. I'll just hide it behind a wall in the middle of nowhere, miles away from civilization. Drive out of Melbourne, not too far, down to the western suburbs, and there's factories with screams coming out of them. They do vigils down there, and I've heard the noises. No glass walls, no tours to factory farms. So it wants to find the imagined best of both worlds, has merely led to fantasies of both, and the inability to perceive either one as it is. So we can't see what hell is, we deny that, and nor can we see heaven, because we're trying to merge them together. The special relationship with animals is the triumph of this confusion. It is a kind of union from which union is excluded. The union of putting one body inside another body. And the actual union is excluded because there's no spirit there. There's no joining of the spirit. It's just this idea of bodies joining, you know. And so it says, and the basis for the attempt at union rests on exclusion. You know, he's just saying it again and again. We just want to exclude certain sons of God from our love. This passage I was drawn to, it's been interesting because I asked Jesus, I really want to know, like I don't want to be teaching any of this stuff if it's my imagination, because, you know, there's so many teachers that are not teaching this. They're teaching special relationship as just some little thing of when you nagged your partner and, and then I got really angry and I felt really angry at them and that was special hate. And, you know, I didn't want to teach something, that I was having my own fantasy about. So he was very, very clear, like, you know, such a clear voice in my mind, and he's directed me to certain sections of the text, and I do want to share them with you, because it became blatantly obvious to me anyway. Yes, I'm going to continue on. What better example could there be of the ego's maxim, seek and do not find? So it wants love, it wants pleasure, it wants something, you know, but it cannot find it where it's looking. It might get some little temporary sort of thing, and then it's gone. It's like a whole life of torture for 15 minutes for a sandwich. An animal that was bred with an intended kill date. Bred into existence, not naturally, you know, put in a cage to suffer. It's had its babies taken away from it and then put on a truck to a slaughterhouse as a baby when its body had been completely grown. So, you know, they're all modified to grow up quickly so we don't have to feed them too much. Murdered for our sandwich, for our quick little fix. And that's not seek and do not find, you know. Rather than this eternal love, this beautiful love of God. Okay, I'll continue on. Most curious of all is the concept of the self which the ego fosters in the special relationship with animals. This little self in inverted commas, seeks the relationship to make itself complete. So I need your protein to grow my body. I need your body. If I don't eat your body, I'm going to be nutritionally deficient. I need nutrition, can't be found anywhere else but in a glass of booby cow interspecies breast milk for my calcium. I need to take a baby's milk from them so I can have strong bones, you know. It's crazy. If that's under the law of God, God is insane. Yet when it finds the special relationship with animals, with farm animals, in which it thinks it can accomplish this, it gives itself away and tries to trade itself for the love of another. This is not union, for there is no increase and no extension. So the way I relate that, it accomplishes this, it gives itself away and tries to trade itself for the self of another. I'm just I remember getting the message on this one. It's sort of like, you know, there's a strong link between, you know, like the epidemic, the main killers in human beings, you know, in the world of form are heart attack, diabetes, and cancer, and now there's now been shown a direct link between that and eating these animal products, and a complete reversal of these diseases through eating a whole foods plant-based diet. And so to me, that's a worldly symbol of this attack and then disease, you know, sickness coming from the attack. So it tries to trade itself for the self of another. It's kind of like I want to die. It's like this marriage of death. I think you know, they talk about the skeleton with the lipstick. I'll go on because sometimes when it says something cryptic like that, it explains it later on. This is not union, for there is no increase and no extension. So the love doesn't increase, it's just a dead body. That's the end, you know. Each being, each partner, it says, you could say a partnership between the eater and the body, the animal. Each partner tries to sacrifice the self he does not want for the one he thinks he would prefer. So, you know, as animals have egos too, so in some way they believe in attack, otherwise they wouldn't be where they are. These animals have got this belief. I feel like my humble interpretation of it is, you know, each son of God chooses this ego world, and that doesn't mean we say, oh, well, you chose it, so I'm just going to eat you. To me, that's like, well, you need love too. You need to be shown you are the love of God. And how can we do that? We can't read them, A Course in Miracles. We just love them, and we leave them alone, and we let them be. And as we all, as the one mind, arise out of this, they all rise with us. And he feels guilty for the sin of taking and of giving nothing of value in return. Yeah, so nothing of value in return, you know. It's all pretty obvious. For how much value can he place upon a self that he would give away to get a better one? Yeah, so we're just trying to swap all these things around, you know, move forms around. The better self the ego seeks is always the one that is more special. You know, I'm going to get a bigger, stronger muscles, or more pleasure, or like, I'm a better cook than you. You know, let me present my beautiful meal that includes a whole lot of torture. And whoever seems to possess a special self is loved for what can be taken from him. It's done in italics. Yeah, so when we've got our special self, our special muscly body, or our special, you know, protein-filled body, or our special cooking, or our special, you know, whatever, then we're loved, you know, like, here I am, here's my body, you know, filled with, like a graveyard, you know, where dead bodies come to rest, and yet there's this twisted belief that we can create a beautiful, special body that way, you know. And we're both partners, see the special self in each other, the ego sees a union made in heaven. You know, the animals are playing out this death wish, we're playing out this death wish, and the ego says, oh, look, how heavenly is this? Don't look too closely. For neither will recognise he has asked for hell. And so he will not interfere with the ego's illusion of heaven. For it offered him to interfere with heaven. Yet if all illusions are of fear, they can be nothing else, of nothing else. The illusion of heaven can be nothing more than an attractive form of fear. An attractive form of fear. Happy meals, in which the guilt is buried deep and rises in the form of love. Not love, capital L, love. I love my meat. I love, we don't say I love my dead corpse that I cooked up. We say I love my meat. Everything's given a nice little name. The appeal of hell lies only in the terrible attraction of guilt, in the ego, which the ego holds out to those who place their faith in littleness. So if we talk about the attraction to guilt, it's talked about a lot, and it seems cryptic, but when you see it in this context, it's such a great classroom. How attracted are we to guilt? Like this god of appetite. The conviction of the littleness lies in every special relationship with animals. For only the deprived could value its specialness. I'm alone, I'm deprived, I'm separate from God, with a body and that needs this specialness and the demand for specialness and the perception of the giving of specialness as an act of love would make love hateful. We serve up we say, hey, I love you, here's a lovely meal, I'm thinking, I've cooked, I've worked, I've gone out and worked to buy this, what we call food. I wouldn't call it food, and we prepare it, and we call that love. Here I am being a provider. It would make love hateful. And the real purpose of the special relationship with animals, in strict accordance with the ego's goal, is to destroy the reality and substitute illusion. So the ego's goal here is to say, yum, 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 bacon, 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 heaven, 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 I'm in heaven, and it's to destroy reality and substitute illusion. For the ego is itself an illusion, and only illusions can be the witness to its reality. If you perceive the special relationship with animals as a triumph over God, would you want it? That says it all. Do you want a triumph over God or not? Let us not think of its fearful nature, nor of the guilt that it must entail, nor of the sadness or the loneliness, for these are only attributes to the whole religion of separation and the total context in which it is thought to occur. So he's saying, don't ruminate too much about it. I think we just, it's this thing, just accept the correction. And, there's a religion, it's like a religion of food, what they call food. And, the central theme in its litany to sacrifice, it says the central theme in its litany to sacrifice is that God must die so you can live. These animals are the sons of God, and they have to die for you to live. That's what it says. And it is the same theme that is acted out in the special relationship with farm animals particularly. Through the death of yourself, you think you can attack another self and snatch it from the other to replace the self that you despise. So we despise ourselves, so that's why we want to replace ourselves. We want to build new bodies by eating bodies. Through the death of yourself, you can attack another self and snatch it from the other to replace yourself you despise. So we snatch, we snatch the lives and we put it in to rebuild these bodies. And it's the death, like this whole thing of being in a body and the body dying. And, if you want to quicken up your death, speed up your death, get really sick and fat and get disease and, all these things, then go ahead and eat lots of dairy and lots of meat. And as I said, I really recommend Cowspiracy, which is showing the death of the planet via this act that we do 3 times a day. And also What the Health. It shows it all. It shows live and living colour. It doesn't show the actual torture of animals or anything like that, but it talks about what happens after that happens to your body and to the earth. It's a great watch because it's just a beautiful picture of what Jesus is saying here. And you despise it because you do not think it offers you the specialness that you demand. And hating it, you have made it little and unworthy because you are afraid of it. So there's part of us that feels guilty because there's so much despising and hatred. Think about how much self and attack and hatred we've had around food. We've attacked ourselves. Oh, I've eaten again. This is even before becoming aware of this animal stuff. I overate. I don't think there's a person in the world that hasn't had some self-hatred around the body because ego made the body. Of course we're going to hate it. How can you grant unlimited power to what you think you have attacked? So fearful has the truth become that unless it is weak and little and unworthy of value, you would dare not look upon it. So we don't want to look at the magnificent. We want to look at the weak and the little and the unworthy of value. You think it's safer to endow the little self which you have made with power you wrested from truth. We wrested love. We wrested this truth of the love of God and we triumphed over it. And it says, wrested it from truth, triumphing over it and leaving it helpless. I'm the big strong one. This little body isn't little. It's just so schizophrenic. It's so mad. See how exactly this ritual is enacted in a special relationship with animals. The altar is erected in between 2 separate beings on which each seeks to kill his self and on its body raise another self that takes the power from his death. If that's not about food, not about animal agriculture, on its body it raises another self. I eat you and then I continue on. I build new cells and bones and all this kind of thing. And it takes its power from his death. Over and over this ritual is enacted. And it is never complete, nor ever will be completed. So we never finally eat enough. We have to keep going and going. For the ritual of completion cannot complete. And life arises not from death, nor heaven from hell. Interesting. It's amazing. Whenever any form of special relationship with animals tempts you to seek for love in its ritual, remember love is content and not form of any kind. Oh, love is content and not form of any kind. There's no love in this body. It's in the mind. The love is from the mind of God, and it extends out. It doesn't get. It doesn't go and try and get something out there. It extends. The special relationship with animals is a ritual of form aimed at the raising of the animal to take the place of God at the expense of content. I am sustained by bodies, or I am sustained by the love of God. There is no meaning in the form, and there never will be. The special relationship with animals must be recognized for what it is, a senseless ritual in which strength is extracted from death of God symbolically and invested in his killer, invested in me. I may not have been the knife wielder, but I paid the hitman at the supermarket. And I wrested the strength of God I wrested the strength that I thought I could get from the death of God. I'm going to read that again. The special relationship with animals must be recognized for what it is. A senseless ritual in which strength is extracted from the death of God symbolically and invested in his killer, me, as the sign that form has triumphed over content and love has lost its meaning. So form being the bodies, the killing, this has triumphed over the content, which is love, the love of God, and love has lost its meaning. Would you want this to be possible, even apart from its evident impossibility? I mean, if the law of God is above everything, what we think is happening is impossible. Would we even want this to be possible, he says? For if it were possible, you would have made yourself helpless. God is not angry. He merely could not let this happen. You cannot change his mind. No rituals that you have set up in which the dance of death delights you can bring death to the eternal. Nor can you substitute for the wholeness of God and have any influence at all upon it. So he's saying he's undone, there's nothing being done, like why do it, because it's not even real. This is an unreal thing that we're doing. See in the special relationship with animals nothing more than a meaningless attempt to raise other gods before him. These other gods, the god of appetite. And by worshipping them to obscure their tininess and his greatness. So it's this tiny little thing we're trying to do, and we're trying to obscure his greatness through doing it. In the name of your completion, you do not want this. And every idol that you raise to place before him stands before you in a place of what you are. So we put this thing in front of us and say we're not love. We put this idol and we say you're not love and I'm not love. Salvation lies in the simple fact that illusions are not fearful because they are not true. But they seem to be fearful to the extent to which you fail to recognize them for what they are. And you will fail to do this to the extent to which you want them to be true. So if you want this illusion to be true, you'll fail to recognize that you're love. And to this same extent you are denying truth, and so you are making yourself unable to make the simple choice between truth and illusion, fantasy, and God. Remember this, and you will have no difficulty in perceiving the decision as just what it is and nothing more. The core of the separation delusion lies simply in the fantasy destruction of love's meaning. So the core of the separation delusion lies in the fantasy destruction of love's meaning. So when we're not being loved, this is the core of our separation. And unless its meaning is restored to you, you cannot know yourself who share its meaning. The separation is only the decision not to know yourself. You are love. I'm saying this now. You are love. But you've made a decision to not know that. I have made a decision not to know that. Its whole thought system is carefully contrived learning experience, designed to lead you away from truth and into fantasy. So the ego's thought system is carefully contrived. So, it's very sneaky, it's very intelligent and tricky. Yet for every learning that would hurt you, God offers you correction. And notice before it said, we'd rather be guilty than corrected. So he offers a correction and a complete escape from all its consequences. So there's no karma. That's how wonderful is that? Like, if we had to pay for every death we've done, that would be like our lifetime of hell. And we think there's the guilt in the mind about this, and it's creating sickness and disease and death. And God's saying to us, you can escape from all its consequences as soon as He's offering you correction and complete escape. He's not saying, keep going, don't worry, it's just an illusion. He's offering you a correction. That correction happens in the mind, and then that will be reflected in the forms. I'll continue. This is the last bit. So it's a long one, isn't it? The decision whether or not to listen to this course and follow it is but a choice between truth and illusion. For here is truth, separated from illusion, and not confused with it at all. So we're not trying to mix the two together. We're not trying to mix heaven and hell. We're separating truth from illusion. How simple does this choice become when it is perceived as only what it is? For only fantasies make confusion for only fantasies make confusion in choosing possible, and they are totally unreal. So this fantasy that we're doing on our plate is what makes confusion in choosing. But it's unreal. This year is thus the time to make the easiest decision that ever confronted you, and also the only one. You will cross the bridge into reality simply because you will recognize that God is on the other side and nothing at all is here. It is impossible not to make the natural decision. Here he uses the word again, natural, as this is realized. Thanks, friends, for listening. I'm going to do another talk again about the laws of chaos, which explains in more detail. These 13 chapters on special relationship are so confusing when we're thinking about it as a human-to-human relationship. And so the classroom of looking at what we do to animals is amazing because it actually makes it easier to see what we're doing to other people when we really, really accept what we're doing. When we can see that this part of our mind is in the mind and it's playing out, and we can look at it, how we do it, with no holds barred when it comes to the animal kingdom. when we look at what we're doing, we can look at it so clearly there. It really, really, really helps to see that what we're doing to people as well, and in our minds maybe not. We're not literally eating people, but we are trying to get stuff. We're always trying to get, and it's just this beautiful teaching that says, don't worry about it. Like, I've got you, your love, and just accept the correction, and there's no this. I love, this idea that this idea that Jesus died for our sins, and a lot of people don't like that symbol, but he's sort of saying, I guess, I am the one Christ mind, and I've accepted my sinlessness. And this old law of an eye for an eye, or what they call in other things karma, bad karma, is done. We just accept the correction, and we create with God. Creation, this beautiful love is just there, and we don't have to earn it. We don't have to pay for our sins. We don't have to do special acts to build up good karma to wake up. God's saying, nah, I want you home now. There's no purpose for you to be in this perception. Come home to me now. Just here it is. Here's the love. Take it. And this is what you're doing to block my love. All you need to do is stop that. Just as Kevin likes to say, stop it. Just stop it. Okay, everyone. Love you so much, and hopefully this is helpful. Okay, bye.
but my